Welcome to Late Night Learning. My name is Dr. Anthony Palomba. I am so excited that you're joining me today. We're actually going to cover a little bit about colors, and we're actually going to be looking at sensation seeking and catharsis. Those terms probably aren't connected or seemingly relevant to each other, but I promise you it's all going to make sense. Colors is a really interesting topic, and probably not something that we think of when we're thinking about entertainment and media. But colors actually convey a lot of different meaning. When you're looking at an actor or an actress with a red shirt on, is he or she about to commit a murder? When you see an actor or an actress perhaps wearing a yellow shirt, is he or she in a better state of mind? Maybe mellowed out, maybe a little bit cooler, maybe by the beach. Next time that you watch a piece of television, play a video game, or watch a movie, pay careful attention to what actors and actresses are actually wearing. One show that does a really good job of this, it's a little bit old, is Nip Tuck. That FX show in which everybody was getting plastic surgery. If you carefully watch the actors and actresses on the particular show, they wind up wearing certain colors depending on the mood that they are conveying. If they are locked in some sort of struggle, they tend to wear red. Or if they have secretly done something to undermine one of the other characters, red and black are typically worn. If characters are connected together in a particular scene, they might actually be wearing the same color. Carefully look at this as you watch more media and entertainment after watching this particular program. So let's get started with the first slide. If you're looking at this, and this is a celebration of the Indian holiday Holi, or Holi, I've never been able to get that particular term right. I've been told two different terms, so I'm going to say both here. Consumer behavior, colors, and perception are terribly important. And like I said before, I do think it's something that we probably take for granted. Colors are duller to older people than younger people. Hence why they prefer bright tones. This is why grandma and grandpa, when they're going to Bermuda, they wear the brightest orange that you've ever seen before. Probably brighter than any other kind of highlighter that you've ever used. Additionally, women tend to see colors better than men do. Men, this is why you argue with your ladies. And ladies, this is why you argue with your ladies. It's 2017. This is why people have arguments over what color it is. If you guys kind of remember, perhaps a few years ago, at least from this airing, there was the blue-gold dress debate. Was the dress blue? Was the dress gold? It was that dress that was posted online, and people were having these heated debates. Part of the reason is that gender actually might determine how you see a particular color. Women are way more sensitive to shades, and they're less likely to kind of see just a few colors. They tend to see variations. Women will see variations with green, a little bit more than men do for that matter. And so as we're thinking about this, as future writers, producers, entertainers, advertisers, PR people, or if you're just watching this for some sort of entertainment and educational experience, we really have to be sensitive to how we use colors. Certain genders pick up on certain variations of color. If you are the project set designer for Scandal or How to Get Away with Murder or Modern Family or Bad Girls Club or Snapped or any of these other shows that tend to have a very strong and prominent female audience, you're probably going to be a little bit more sensitive to color schemes. Additionally, with the advent of HD quality video and 4K technology already here and already kind of being inserted into the mainstream, we have a really unique situation in which a lot of project set designers have to be mindful of how they set up a particular scene. How worried are we with the dark green couch? How worried are we that the mug is a maroon? Do people pick up on these colors and tones? How does it inform the particular set? How does it convey the particular mood that the director is looking to project? All of these questions and considerations come down with colors. We see colors right when we're introduced to a show. It's one of the first things that a show is probably worried about. You've seen advertisements for particular TV shows. You've seen advertisements for particular brands. And so as you're looking at each logo, it's not enough to just be funny or dramatic in a particular advertisement or TV logo. You have to be able to really discern which color signifies what you're going after. Don't believe me? Look at the next slide. As you can see here, I'm not making this up. So, if we look at the bottom left corner, you can see Real Housewives of Orange County. Now, we have the color orange set in the background. Okay, so the color orange here, if we look above, we have health, attraction, standout, thirst, wealth, youthfulness. Yeah, I think there's a thirst, I think there's a wealth, I think there's a youthfulness that is absolutely conveyed to a handful of uber wealthy millionaires living in Orange County. That's the premise of this particular show. If we keep going, we have Aero. Now, Aero is soothing, eco-friendly, natural. There's a bit of envy, but there's also a bit of balance and restfulness as well. Being that it is green, there might be some sort of peacefulness and balance that Aero, as a superhero, wielding his swords and arrows and bows, executes on each particular show. We have the show Love right there, which is in red. And so red, of course, exudes love, immediacy, and energy. There's also anger, and if you've watched the show, there's a lot of anger between the two main characters. There's a lot of tension that tends to build up in certain shows. If we look at the bottom right, we have It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and the main cast are the Porceps that have literally been excreted from a particular, looks like a cow or some sort of other farm-based animal. So it's yellow in the background. Okay. It's yellow, which is cheerful, attention, childish, fresh, warmth, optimism. But that's kind of the joke of the show. It's always sunny in Philadelphia. But if you've watched the show before, you quickly realize that the show, in fact, is not always sunny. That, in fact, the show is about a bunch of friends trying to backstab each other regularly. And so if you look at the Vanderpump Rules picture on the slide, you'll also see that we have purple there. Purple exudes royalty and kind of a mysteriousness. And then if you look all the way up with Blackish, you have a lot of just multicolors there. A lot of yellows and oranges and blues and greens. It's exuding energy and excitement and togetherness. Look at how all of these cast members are dressed. They do kind of match. I mean, it's different colors, but certainly the style, the coloring, they're all in sync. And even though they're wearing different kinds of colors, the colors are in the same type of tone, if you will. And so when we're looking at colors, you can kind of see that a lot is going on here. Executives are regularly looking at this and saying, what can we exude? What can we communicate? What can readers and audience members properly draw in from the particular color scheme we are implementing in these particular brands? Now, if you go to the next slide, we have a very interesting take here regarding touch. So let me talk to you for a second about touch here. So if you've ever been to the mall, let's say, you've been to the mall and you're saying to yourself, I want to buy something. So maybe you're walking around the mall and there are kiosks that are set up. And so these kiosks have these lotions that are offered to consumers who are walking by. And you say to yourself, oh my God, I don't want to deal with the lotion anymore. I don't want to deal with any of this. Please, for the love of God, I don't want them to put something in my hand. I'm done with it. I just want to get to the next store. I just want to get to the Gap. The reason why these people are trying to put something in your hand immediately, even if you don't want the lotion, it always brings the lotion. If you don't want the lotion, they're doing this because they want you to have ownership. It's weird. So let's bring this back a little bit. The last time you held something that belonged to somebody, How did it make you feel? We know that our friend's PlayStation controller, TV remote, Amazon Fire Stick, cell phone, whatever it might be, it doesn't belong to us. Somebody else's. But when we hold something and we pick it up for the first time, we hold on to it for a few seconds. We feel like we have ownership. We feel like we have ownership over the particular product. It's kind of this haptic ownership, perceived ownership. Oh, it's ours. This feels like it belongs to me. I don't want to put it down. Who here has been guilty of not wanting to put down something that they found at a particular store? Exactly. All of us have, myself included. As a result of that, if we look at the touch slide that I had up previously, you'll see that for a few things, touching an item can cause perceived ownership, as we stated. Touch creates stimulation, and it grabs our attention. And consumer confidence is raised when we're able to touch a particular product. And so if I am holding a particular virtual reality headset, right? Those goggles that we see more and more people wearing who are immersing themselves in some sort of fictional world. When we see those things, we start to own that particular reality. We start to own that world. And we begin to own our own experiences right in the world. We feel like we're a part of it. We feel as though that we're immersed in it. And so it's very important, even when we're dealing with entertainment and theory, think about consumer holding and consumer touch, consumer feeling. When you can do those things, you will absolutely be able to run the table on a lot of other entertainment firms. As of this taping, I was in Los Angeles the week before, and they had a panel at the Television Academy Foundation. They had a panel with virtual reality and immersion and storytelling. And it was really something to see people for the first time pick up a virtual reality headset. Now, it was just faculty from all around the country, myself included, but a lot of faculty members, they hadn't held a headset before. And they were a little bit hesitant to kind of hold it and to put it on. But once they did so, they were immersed. And you could see them kind of looking around and saying, whoa, yeah. But then when they took it off, the headset off, they didn't want to give it back. Touch is really powerful. This is why when you go into a toy store or if you go into an electronics store, computers, laptops, video game consoles, they're all there. They want you to try it out. It's not just a matter of you saying, oh, I'd like this. I'd love to purchase this. I'd love to own this. Let me try this for a second. It's also you seeing yourself in it, seeing yourself owning it, feeling like you own it. It's the same principle that works with real estate as well. If you can get people to touch the walls, the doors, the table, feel the floor, when you get stimulated, when your senses are stimulated, you tend to take ownership over the reality that's near you, whether it's tangible or whether it's intangible, like virtual reality. So, transitioning to this slide, we have voyeurism and social identity theory. This is a little funky. So the Real Housewives of Atlanta is an example of this. But with voyeurism and social identity, we have a few things percolating here. I've been fortunate enough to do consulting with a high-profile TV network. And one of the things that we're looking at is guilty pleasure TV. And so voyeurism has been something that has definitely been linked up with the particular content. And so with voyeurism, what we're looking at is this ability to kind of follow other people without them knowing. Kind of this peeping Tom, if you will. And I'm sure some of you have been guilty of doing so. We have all looked over into our neighbors' houses. If they have those large see-through glass doors, we can't help but sometimes look to see kind of what's going on. I know that I've been guilty of looking at other people's television sets in their homes while I've been jogging down the street. Hopefully none of you live near me. But when we do these things, it's kind of a natural impulse that we have. It's kind of part of our defensive mechanism, if you will, trying to gain information and be informed about the world around us. Voyeurism allows us to do this. And it's an appealing element in these particular shows, especially when it comes to reality shows. These shows that follow a family or follow a group of friends and, deal with sex and people cheating on each other or people making up lies and rumors. Voyeurism works for the audience because we're in on something. We're in on something the other cast members don't know about. And because the other cast members don't know about it, we feel like we're in the show. We know something that the rest of them don't know. Somewhat related to this particular theory is social identity theory. Do we identify with the characters that we watch? Not all the time, but when we are looking at this, the idea is, do we have traits that are particularly linked with these characters? Do we have commonalities? Do we share certain characteristics? Fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, I've had students and friends tell me that I remind them of Ross from Friends. Do I look like Ross? I might. Do I share particular traits with him? Sort of. He's a college professor. I'm a college professor. So it kind of works. We're both friendly, I think. We're also very devastatingly handsome. Anyway, with these traits, I might form a relationship with a particular character. And so if I can identify with him, and if perhaps I can identify with other characters, then it might mean that there's a certain conceptual membership I might have with a particular group. This is most seen on shows kind of like the Jersey Shore, if we're going back a little bit, which had a group of self-identified Italian Guidos who embraced and adopted the Guido lifestyle. They talked about being a Guido. They bragged about being a Guido. 16 and Pregnant, a show about pregnant teenagers. Any other kind of reality-based show, typically, but it doesn't have to be limited to that. When we have these subscriptions to these particular conceptual memberships, then we watch these shows as kind of a ritualistic endeavor. We wind up saying to ourselves, I want to learn more about being a Guido, or I want to learn more about, what I should be doing if I'm 16 and pregnant. I want to know what I should be doing and how I should be living my life. So these shows wind up becoming kind of a how-to manual. Maybe not the primary driver for the particular shows, but a lot of them do wind up being like that for a lot of people who have these connections to these shows. This is otherwise known as parasocial relationships as well. Kind of the one-on-one relationships we have with particular characters. It's also kind of a one-sided relationship because, let's face it, Ross from Friends is never going to talk to me. I've never met David Schwimmer, the actor, although he's been around Westchester a few times. I've never met him. I don't know if he's like Ross, the character. The most that I can do with the particular character is look forward to seeing him at night, look forward to the jokes that he or she allows me to escape, enjoy some sort of fantasy, and allows me to live vicariously through them, which is paramount. So if we look at the next slide, going off a little bit related to parasocial relationships is this idea of horror and violence. Now, we do have these one-sided relationships with monsters and horror and a whole host of other things. But the idea is that when we are looking at horror and violence, we still erect these one-sided relationships between monsters and between heroes and between other things. But the reason why I also bring up horror and violence is that they pull out different elements of the entertainment experience that I don't think always manifest as much in action or comedy or other things for that matter. They can, but horror and violence are typically predicated on drumming up and escalating these particular variables. If we're thinking about voyeurism, and if we're thinking about connecting with characters, a lot of horror and violence is predicated on voyeurism. let's face it, we're able to drum up tension because we know something other characters don't. Or maybe we know less than the characters do. This is typically one scale in which horror and violence operates on. If we think about sensation seeking, and those of you who are looking at this photo and saying, what is this? This is actually a clip from Stranger Things, the shot of Stranger Things, that is. So if we're looking at sensation seeking, we're saying to ourselves, why do we watch horror? Why do we watch violence? We're seeking out sensations. We want to feel goosebumps. We want to feel the tiny hairs on the back of our necks stand up. And we kind of want to feel the heavy moments within a particular horror program or violent-based program. Catharsis is related to this because catharsis states, it is illegal to shoot people, it is illegal to stab people, but boy, do I feel better when we have the hero or heroine stab or shoot a bad guy. You feel good. There's some sort of catharsis. You just feel better. You're vicariously living through the actor who is committing the particular act. It's through catharsis we feel better. We feel better seeing somebody get back at somebody. Maybe you've had a bad day at work, and rather than stabbing your boss in between the eyes like you'd like to, you go home, you watch a movie, and the hero blows away the bad guy. And this is a way in which for you to kind of feel that you're getting that negative energy out, that you're like, I can't stab Bob, but you know what? This guy kind of did it for me by stabbing the villain, for that matter. The final piece of this particular show does deal with horror and violence. And the idea is that children are often afraid of monsters. And so they are afraid of things that look scary. But as we know, as we grow up to be adults, we're not necessarily scared of monsters anymore. What do we fear? Well, it's usually conceptually based. So movies like The Sixth Sense, movies like, perhaps Stranger Things, also deals with conceptually dark elements. Not just that the monsters are scary. Sure, in Stranger Things, the monsters are scary. But what is more important is that it deals with loss. It deals with something that is bigger than all of us. We fear these elements that are bigger than us. We fear a government that might be watching every movement that we make. We fear the idea of potentially being subjected to an experiment at work that could kill us. We fear a lot of these other elements that are represented differently in movies without fearfulness. Well, that wraps up today's lecture on late night learning. Keep laughing and keep learning. We'll see you next time.